Yeah.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm great. I'm very happy to meet you.
Nice.
So I just wanted to, I want to ask you a bit about the tour and some things about the album. Congratulations on the new sixth album. Its reception must be a great source of pride for you and probably relief after years of working on it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it was, you always kind of go in hoping for the best, right? You don't
Yeah,
I don't really judge albums based on response, but it is a nice bonus that when people do actually listen to it.
yeah,
And most, the majority have been like really pretty positive, and
for
it's
sure.
been great. It's been really a pleasant surprise for sure.
It's great. I read the story about Eddie turning up when you were doing the working on the Rise solo, which must be quite a few years ago. So I just wanted to ask you when you started working on the album and when it finally got to mixing and mastering stage. It must have been quite a while in between.
Actually, I think that the confusion is it's one thing to not have released anything in a while, but it didn't take that long to record the album.
Right.
It took pretty much the same amount of time an album would take to record, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this we had like two or three other kind of renditions of an album, you know, throughout the last 10 years, but there was just not enough there, or nothing there that really was turning me on anyways to kind of want to share it.
Right.
So it wasn't until about like, I want to say maybe 2019, 2018, where I kind of jumped on a crop of songs, three or four songs that really became like the foundation of it, and I kind of saw what was happening, and built it off that. So it wasn't that long of an ordeal, and really the album was done by 2020. Should have been released 2020, but as we know,
Yeah.
the Handmaid's Tale appeared,
Yes, it did. So,
and
yeah.
yeah.
So, currently on the Thicker Than Blood tour with your friends Live in Color. And I wanted to ask you for any, the tagline is it's going to be extreme, it's going to be colorful. So, are there any crazy tour stories or is it just dinners and cups of tea now? By the way, I'm talking to Vernon in about an hour. So, anything you say, I'm going to use to fuel stories with him. So, what have you got?
I mean, look, to be honest with you, this is probably, a few decades overdue. I think there was a crop of artists when we were coming out that didn't quite fit into the metal scene, if you will, and
Yeah.
it had some sort of outside the box, whether it was a kind of a funk element or we were using horns. And I think, it
Mm,
was us, Living Color, King's X, like
yeah.
not two or three artists that and really at the end of the day, we've always thought like, well, you know what, birds of a feather, maybe we should kind of birds of a feather tour together. That's what it should have been, the name of the
Nice.
tour. But
Nice.
we've never done anything with them, which is really shocking. So there can't be many stories yet because we're only three shows in, three, four in, and
Right. Okay.
at the beginning of a tour, you kind of everybody's trying to get their bearings and get their shit together, and it takes a minute, man. I
Yeah.
mean, last night was the fourth show in their hometown, and I think only then that we started to really going, okay, I think we know what the set list is. I think we know so we can get to a point where we can actually hang out. But I've
Yeah.
known Vernon for a long time, much respect, and Corey. I mean, it's just an incredible band. Um, and it's been amazing just listening to him every night. I think that's probably the gist of the tour story right now, is
Yeah.
just really
Okay.
just getting to just be around good people, and not seeing them that much yet, but in the hallways at school where
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
seeing.
You're passing. Yeah.
Yeah.
How much? So speaking of the set list and figuring it out, how much of that do you like to keep a bit fluid? How much of it's set? I mean, how much of the new album will we hear?
Well, I mean, fuck. I mean, it's over the last 3 days, it's changed quite a bit. But
Right.
we thought we had it worked out, but I think the new album always kind of throws a wrench into things in a good way.
Mm,
You want to do is, all you want to do as an artist is you want to do the new material, and I wish
of
we got
course.
five songs in the set, which a lot of artists don't do that when they have a new album out. But we'd love to do more, but as it goes, if you don't do stuff off of Three Sides or Porn Graffiti or certain albums, people are going to get pissed. We can't win either way.
Yeah.
We see people afterwards are saying, "Why didn't you do this and this and that off the new album?" And then I'm saying, "Okay, well, what do you want me to take out?" And And I give him things and say, no, no, you can't take that out. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
we're already playing 2 hours, if not more. So
yeah,
hopefully we'll do the five we're doing now, which are the ones that, more or less with videos and stuff like that.
yeah,
And then do the other stuff that we're excited about, Thicker Than Blood and X Out and all these other songs we want to do.
yeah. Well, it's obvious. The answer is you need to do a 3 hour show, not 2 hour. That's I guess
Yeah,
that's what it is.
exactly.
Yeah,
That is. But unfortunately, even though that when we get on stage we are still 18, our body's saying otherwise
I understand.
after the show.
Yeah. So on the touring rig, I want to ask some guitar nerd questions. So about your touring rig, and I see you always when you're asked about that, you often divert to tones in your hands and all that sort of stuff, and that, of course that's absolutely true. But I did want to ask you, you're right.
Yeah.
So I did want to ask you though, the current touring rig, have you made any sweeping changes, or is it the same? Is it your Rat into a Marshall? What are you currently doing?
Yeah, it's still boring as fuck. It's just there's nothing there to talk about. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, I've always been kind of a creature of habit, and
Yeah.
yeah, tone in your hands, but obviously your amp and the Rat and everything I've done is just, that it's. I mean, if there's something to talk about between me and Vernon is when I walked out and saw his pedal board.
Yeah, the spaceship. Yeah,
Bass
yeah,
player as well was even bigger, but
yeah,
twice the size of that. And I think, look, I think people that know how to use stuff like that and be creative, it's great. I'm unfortunately not one of those guys. I panic when something's in between my hands and the actual head of the speakers.
yeah,
And I don't mind a bit of chorus once in a while, delay obviously for solos, but not much going on
yeah. Are you still using
outside.
your trusty GT8 in the Boss GT8? Is that still what you're using in
Yeah,
your rig?
that
Yeah.
terrible thing. Yeah.
It's working, right? It's still working.
Working. Every time you change a patch, it kind of does a bit of a pause, and the glitch has been happening for decades. But
You don't want to change
that's
it.
that. That's the game. Part
Nice.
of myself, I guess.
And guitars for the tour? Are we going to see Nelly as well?
Yeah, I actually brought it with me to play. I haven't played it yet because I was, going to try to incorporate it in the songs that I've actually used it, like Rainbow and
Yeah.
Small Beautiful. But as we're rehearsing him and as the set's going, it's more or less just like let's get these songs down before it's a lot at once, like different guitars and
Yeah.
things like that. But definitely want to pull it out as the tour goes.
Yeah. So on the other side of the rainbow, because that's the new single, and classic, extreme, great harmonies in there. It's a great feeling song. But I want to ask you about that solo and the recording of that solo because I've listened to it a few times, and it's it starts off sounding like you're using some sort of slow open wah, but really it's in the end you're hearing what seems to be a slow phaser. But I wanted to ask you what that was because
I
it's a
mean,
bit
well,
buried.
I guess you brought up a good point. I mean, we were talking about gear and what I'm using and what I'm not using, but you know, it's a Phase 90, and
Right.
I've never really recorded with a Phase 90 before. I use like what is it, the 100 or on the Punchline album for a couple of things, but just you know, it's one thing to already be influenced by Edward, but the second you put that in your rig, you're basically cloning him at that point. And since 1978, since that first album, he's kind of taken ownership of that Phase 90, and it's
Sure.
kind of against the law to use it for anything else.
Yeah.
So, but after he passed, it wasn't on the album. I kind of snuck it in here and there to
Right.
more or less, I figure if he's not around to yell at me or accuse me of stealing his sound, maybe. I know he's up there though. He's definitely yelling at me, like
Yeah.
Bettencourt. Yeah, but yeah, that you're right. It does feel like a bit of a wah. It's I think I used it on. I did it kind of in Rise a little bit, and then Rainbow for sure.
Yeah.
I think also on Here's to the Losers and maybe one other, maybe Save Me. But yeah, that I just started like I felt like I don't know. It's strange. I could never. I've always loved it, not just because of Edward, because it's such a great pedal. It's
Yeah.
such it it's a very expressive pedal on its own.
Yeah.
And then I was like, fuck it, here's a little you know, a little bit tip of the hat to
Yeah.
Edward.
I'm sure you wouldn't mind, and you still sound like you anyway. It's not like it's not like it's Eddie there. It's like you said, it's tipping the hat. I mean,
Yeah.
between I think with you and I think Edward suffered the same fate. With you get called a shredder, which completely undersells what you are and what he was. He had that swing with all his rhythm parts, and for
Yeah.
you have that funk. Like you've always had that funk, and that's what always for me has set your playing apart from any other technical shredder in that way, because it just undersells you. I want to ask you, what do you attribute, other than Edward, what do you attribute to that within your playing, and the brass influences and all that sort of stuff? Where does that come from?
I mean, I think it's kind of just an attraction. I've always, even, I mean, I've always loved, I grew up a lot. I'm youngest of 10 kids, so I grew up a lot around a lot of different genres and different music, going from bedroom to bedroom. But I think being Portuguese, there was always a rhythmic thing
Mm,
in my DNA, and being around Portuguese music and the percussiveness of it. And
yeah,
but I
right.
think but I think early on, listening to James Brown and Tower of Power and but then the rock bands that I loved, that a lot of people consider some of the greatest rock bands, I was always attracted to the funkier side of what they did. It wasn't always a lot, but Aerosmith to me was funky. There was
Mm,
times with Zeppelin was as well, with songs like The Crunge and things that were just really like interesting that way. And then Van Halen as well, Out of Love, songs that were like Mean Streets, things that felt like a rock funk. It's not traditional funk,
yeah,
but I was always in Queen as well. Like I used to really like be
of
into songs like
course.
Dragon Attack and things that were just had a little bit more of, a little bit more of a groove to it. Even though I love rock and roll all the way around, but as a composer, that always attracted me,
Mm,
and I think that had a lot to do with the fact that I played drums first as well.
right, yeah,
And I always found kind of the beauty in the not in the drumming that's complex, but the drumming that's really simplified, that's a pocket, and really, there was something always, attractive to me about that.
yeah, cool. So back on the recording of Six, amp wise, did you use plugins, real amps? Are you moving air? Are you recording that? Are you overdubbing with plugins? What is it, a mixture of all
No,
those
it
things?
was it was it was it's just a head that I have in the studio. It's a 2000 and a cab, like a 900 cab, and it just sits there
Yeah,
in a little drum room, and recorded the whole album in my studio at home. And I mean, it's not like a major studio. It's not like, I don't even know if I'd call it a real studio, but in the sense of there's no board. It's just, everything's in the box, and obviously some preamps and things to record, microphones and things like that.
yeah.
Yeah, you know, I'll use like a Kemper and some things and some plugins when I'm writing or creating, or if there's a part that I do, like one little part that I did something that I was demoing, and I'm like, oh man, I'd like to keep that for a text or something. But the gist of the whole thing is, it's got to be an amp. It just responds so differently. It
Yeah.
makes you work. It makes you work a little harder. Sometimes the plugins or even like Kempers and stuff, they do so much work for you because they're so modeled. They they give you they give you tones and sounds that you don't deserve.
That's an
That,
interesting way to put it.
that
Yeah,
you haven't earned. It's like, well,
yeah,
here's Van Halen 1 and Van Halen 2 at your fingertips. I'm like, there it is. This is
yeah, yeah,
incredible.
yeah,
And I think it's great. It's fun. And by the way, I'm not frowning upon it. Like, it's if people can make everybody can make that into their thing as well.
mm,
But I always found that if you really, really, truly want to sound like you for, uh, in sickness and in health, if you want to be truly honest, there you are. You plug into an amp, and that's your DNA, like it or not. And
yeah,
sometimes Kempers and things like that, or modeling amps, are a little bit, they cheat, and they can be in a good way. They can be creative that way as well, but they do manipulate, like, not what you're going to do tonally within that sound, but usually, like I said, with an amp, it's more than just an amp, you know. It's you can put, you know, 4 or 5 different amps in front of you, but they'll tend to sound somewhat the same as you're playing through them. But man, when you go through like sounds that have been modeled by like some serious people, like you're literally skipping to those genres and tones, like just right there. It's incredible. It's
Yeah,
incredible technology. Incredible technology.
but it doesn't fight you back, right? Like an amp, it's a
Yeah, I
living
mean,
being with you, right?
you kind of gotta, you know, sometimes it's just you gotta, you know, wrestle that alligator. You know, you just gotta do it. Or some
That's
sort of
right.
the crocodile, if you will.
Nice. I see what you've done.
Yeah.
So it's been a few years since you've been down here. So last time with Mr. Big, we saw you here, and that was just a great show. So far, what are your favourite moments within the show? What have you really gravitated towards, or is it all just a bit much trying to figure out, get your
I think
rhythm within it right
when we're taking the photo at the end with everybody, it's probably one of my favorite.
now?
No, I listen, I've always been that person that's like, I won't, we're very self-centered and selfish that way, that we're like, there's nothing we're going to put in the set that we don't love to play. And I think that goes back to there's nothing that you put on the album that you don't love to play, because then you get stuck with it in the set, right? If it becomes a hit or whatever it may be.
Right.
There's more than words, or whether it's wholehearted, or whether it's, you know, hashtag rebel or whatever it is. It's I've always found for me, you know, going on stage is it's kind of like it could be a 1 hour show, it could be a 2 hour show or a 3 hour show, and it always feels the same to me, because it's always, you know, in the moment, and it's never looking at your watch. It's almost like when it's done, it's like, oh, okay, that's it. And it's kind of cool that way, because I think that's how you kind of go all in, you know, you kind of black out because you're in every moment, every note, you know, and you try to emotionally stay. It's not easy every night doing it, you know, show after show, to emotionally be invested. Physically, you're gonna be there. Physically, yeah, you can
Yeah.
get tired, but the emotion is the hard part. To not just punch in the clock like I see a lot of bands do when I tour with
Yeah.
them, or we shows, you know, that they just go up and here's the songs that you know, and but whether it's the songs people know or not from us, you know, we play some deep cuts. It's like it's always been difficult to pretend or to just punch in the clock for me. Um, I've never been able to do it. It's always kind of like either all in or go home, you know.
Well, it definitely shows you guys are performing. I know you say you don't feel like a 20-year-old anymore, but you certainly perform like it when you're up there. That's like you guys have
Yeah, I
never
mean,
seen better.
no, listen, I think we've gotten, you know, it's the, what do they say, you know, work smarter, not harder. You know, I think when we were younger, we were still passionate, but I think when I look back at some of the stuff, like, you know, you're young, you kind of not overcompensate, you just, your energy overtakes the
Yeah.
balance of your playing, if you will. And I
Right.
think we've got to a point where it's like how to emotionally engage, not just physically engage, not just prove that you physically are, you know, a force.
Yeah.
And I think through the years, that's what, you know, it's a good thing to do. It's a dangerous thing to do, because sometimes you get old, and you confuse that maturity with like, I don't know, you confuse like maturity with balance, as opposed to like, oh, I'm mature now, I'm not even gonna play that way or perform that way, as opposed to like, no, man, you still feel like a kid when you're up there. It's still rock and
Yeah.
roll.
Yeah.
Same way we did when we were 17. It's that same energy. That's never changed in a really fucking odd way. It's never changed for, I think, any of us.
Yeah.
And but I think what's changed is just like I don't know, I think Steven Tyler said he put it in an interview once, when they were still in their 40s, like when they were doing that resurgence of,
Yeah.
you know, resurgence of Permanent Vacation and those albums, Pump and stuff. They were asking him an interview, because then they probably thought that was their last albums at 40, and here they
Yeah.
are at 70 still doing it. But I remember him in an interview saying that, how do you feel about all these younger artists, these younger rock bands, and you guys are the little guys? And he basically he put it this way. He said, you know, while they're all masturbating, we're fucking. And I went, that's exactly right.
That's it. That's
While
it
they're all
right
like
there.
foreplay and masturbating, we're you know, it's just it's a maturity, but it's still sexual. You're in there, but it's like you're not young anymore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's so it's exciting. I think it's exciting for us, because we don't see it a lot anymore. You know, when we do
Mm.
shows, tour, we see a lot of our contemporaries from back in the day, and it's very different.
Yeah.
You know,
For
people
sure.
that kind of like they show up, you know,
Yeah.
and by the way, there's nothing wrong with that in the sense that if you're going, whatever reason you're going to perform, whether it's financially, whether you just like to do it, whether it's work now, whatever it is. But unfortunately for us, it as a detriment to us. We've never done anything for the money that way. If that was the case, we would have put out an album every year.
Yeah,
You know,
that's great. Well, I know your time is short at the moment. You've got interviews to do, so I want to thank you so much for fighting the good fight for rock guitar and keeping it in the social conscience. And you just keep redefining it by doing different techniques, man. It's very much appreciated that our guitar heroes like you are still making music and vibrant and new music. It's really important.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Look, I mean, I think the most exciting thing about the album, yeah, there's guitar playing in the band and songs, but I don't think I realized until I saw the reaction, not, like not just for me or the solos, but just for rock and roll in general.
Yeah.
A rock album that somebody cared about or curated or was like, gave it their all. You realize how starved people are for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if there's one thing, it was just contributing that. And people saying that to me is like, man, it took us a minute to wake up to just go like, we gotta keep this shit going and keep this level of passion and quality and whatever it may be, and
absolutely,
maybe that inspired him. But and when you talk to Vernon, tell him I love him and tell him I said go fuck himself.
I will probably say the first one, perhaps not the second.
Yeah, tell him to go fuck yourself. Tell him I don't appreciate how well he's playing before I go on. Tell him it doesn't make it easy on me.
Tell him to tone it down a bit. Got it. Okay, no problem. Right. Man, I've been a fan since Point of Graffiti. Thank you so much again. Tickets are available at Ticketek for anyone's watching this. Get to the tour. It's an amazing show. Thanks for your time, Nuno.
All right, can't wait to get there, man. It's gonna be fun. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.